Hey there, welcome to This Explainer. If you clicked on this today, there's a really good chance that either you or maybe someone you profoundly care about is carrying an incredibly heavy burden right now. And before we do anything else, I just want to start by acknowledging the absolute ground level reality of that pain. When massive personal problems crash into our lives, and I'm talking about the devastating sudden loss of a loved one, or maybe a severe, terrifying health diagnosis, unexpected financial ruin, or the really heartbreaking end of a long-term relationship, that pain, it isn't just some abstract metaphor. It is intense. It's visceral. And that feeling of just being completely underwater and totally overwhelmed is entirely valid. When you're waking up every single day with a giant knot in your stomach and you're really just trying to survive until the sun goes down, man, it feels literally impossible to imagine a way out. But I am here to tell you right now, survival isn't just a possibility. It is entirely within your reach. So today, we're going to use this explainer as a compassionate, super practical guide. We're going to look really closely at the actual mechanical nature of a crisis, and much more importantly, we're going to walk through a proven step-by-step roadmap to actually climb your way out of it. So today, we're going to use this explainer as a compassionate, super practical guide. We're going to look really closely at the actual mechanical nature of a crisis, and much more importantly, we're going to walk through a proven step-by-step roadmap to actually climb your way out of it. Okay, let's dive right into this. A sudden job loss, profound grief, or a debilitating illness. It almost always feels exactly like standing at the very bottom of a deep, dark hole. You're looking way up at this tiny, tiny patch of sky, and it just feels entirely out of reach. These challenges, they almost always show up without any warning, right? Just sweeping the ground completely out from under you. And they leave you feeling so deeply isolated, utterly trapped, and honestly unsure of where to even begin looking for a foothold just to pull yourself up. It is a terrifying, fundamentally disorienting place to find yourself. But think about this. The very fact that you can even see the light at the top of that hole, that means there is in fact a physical way up. But to get out of that hole, we absolutely need a plan. Today, we're covering 5 key steps. First, the hidden epidemic. Second, the addiction trap. Third, the turning point. Fourth, our incredibly practical 4-step roadmap. And finally, your future vision. All right, jumping into section 1, the hidden epidemic. I really want you to hear me on this. You are not suffering alone. See, when you are in the thick of a terrible crisis, the single most dangerous lie your own mind is going to tell you is that you are the absolute only one suffering in this way, that you're totally uniquely broken. But the reality tells a completely different, deeply validating story. Just let this number sink in for a second. 48 million. Right now, in America, 48 million individuals contend with significant mental health or substance use disorders every single year. That is a staggering, almost unfathomable figure when you really think about it. It just reveals the truly pervasive nature of these exact challenges. So if you're hurting right now, please know you are not an outlier. You are actually part of a massive, vast population navigating these exact same turbulent, terrifying waters day in and day out. To put that into a perspective that's maybe a little easier to grasp, that's 1 in 5 adults facing challenges that can feel deeply isolating and sometimes literally life-threatening. 1 in 5. I mean, think about what that actually looks like. That means the person sitting right next to you on your morning commute, or the coworker sitting at the desk across from you, or crazy enough, even the person passing you the mashed potatoes at your family dinner, they might be fighting a massive, silent battle that you know absolutely nothing about. Because these struggles, they're largely invisible to the outside world. And recognizing this statistic is such a powerful, essential catalyst for your own healing. Why? Because it proves that what you're going through is a shared human experience. It's a human thing. It is not a unique personal failure. It's not a sign of profound weakness. And it means you absolutely do not have to suffer in silence anymore. Moving on to section 2, the addiction trap. This explores what happens when our natural instinct for coping suddenly becomes a trap. So the crucial point is this. When life pushes us to our absolute breaking limits, we as human beings naturally look for ways to cope with that pain, right? We're trying to manage the extreme stress or numb the underlying trauma. We desperately, understandably, just want an escape. But sometimes, what starts out as a totally understandable temporary escape from reality can subtly and incredibly dangerously transform into a trap. And we need to completely, 100% destigmatize what is actually happening mechanically when coping goes wrong. Addiction is fundamentally a complex brain disease. It is not a moral failing. Think of your brain's dopamine reward system like a finely tuned thermostat in your house. Normally, it regulates your sense of well-being. It rewards you for healthy, everyday behaviors.
But when someone tries to self-medicate for severe, overwhelming trauma or stress, repeated exposure to certain substances or compulsive behaviors effectively hijacks that thermostat. It completely overrides the system. It literally alters your brain chemistry, forcefully rewiring those dopamine pathways. So your brain starts truly biologically believing that it physically needs the substance just to survive, literally the exact same way it needs water or oxygen. Understanding this changes everything. It removes the heavy, suffocating blanket of shame from the equation. Because it's a biological rewiring. It's a mechanical failure that requires proper medical and psychological repair, not some supposed sign of a weak character.
Let's methodically walk through exactly how this destructive cycle happens, step by step, because it almost always starts with a simple temporary escape. Maybe it's just a drink to unwind after a brutally hard day, or a certain behavior just to numb the sharp, biting edge of a loss. But then, phase 2 kicks in, tolerance and dependence. The body and the mind naturally adapt to that hijack thermostat we just talked about, so they start demanding more of the substance or behavior just to achieve the exact same soothing effect. Or, terrifyingly, sometimes just to feel somewhat normal and survive the day. And ultimately, you land right in phase 3, a destructive trap. The very thing you initially used to soothe your original pain has now grown into this monster. It becomes the primary source of even greater suffering, complete with intense physical withdrawals, massive emotional distress, and just a total terrifying loss of control. And the really heartbreaking part? This pain doesn't just stay neatly contained to the individual going through it. It echoes outward, pulling everyone else in. The ripple effect is incredibly profound. Just consider this for a moment. 1 in about 12 children live with a parent facing a substance use disorder. Just let the gravity of that land for a second. That's a huge number of kids. This trap, it strains our absolute most important family relationships. It completely shatters bedrock trust, and it violently jeopardizes financial stability. Entire communities end up feeling the strain on healthcare and social support networks. So recognizing exactly when a coping mechanism has quietly shifted into a destructive pattern, it's absolutely crucial. Not just for the individual suffering, but for literally everyone whose lives are deeply intertwined with theirs. Which brings us to section 3, the turning point. Because yes, there's absolutely a way out. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly what we're talking about. Here is where our whole narrative makes a crucial life-saving shift. We are moving from the descent directly into the ascent. The reality of recovery, it's actually a whole lot like being in a dark, seemingly endless tunnel. When you're in it, it's deeply disorienting, the walls feel like they're closing in, and the darkness can feel totally permanent. But there is an undeniable warm light at the end of it. Millions, literally millions, of individuals have successfully navigated their way through struggles exactly like the one you might be in right now. They have painstakingly walked from the deep, terrifying shadows of addiction, trauma, and desperate self-medication right into lives of profound sobriety, renewed health, and incredible well-being. Their true stories are absolute, undeniable proof that if you just keep putting one foot in front of the other, no matter how slow you're going, you will eventually reach the light. So how do we do it? That's section 4, the 4-step roadmap for reclaiming control of your life. Okay, so how exactly do we get there? This is the highly actionable, roll-up-your-sleeves part of our explainer. And the secret here is actually counterintuitive. It is not about attempting some massive, overwhelming overnight transformation. Not at all. It is all about focusing on small, truly achievable steps. Step 1 is to courageously acknowledge and accept your reality, and doing so with deep, unwavering compassion for yourself. First, cultivate your own self-awareness. Seriously, try using a daily journal to just document your raw feelings, your sudden triggers, your knee-jerk reactions. Writing things down on actual physical paper, it pulls all those invisible, subconscious patterns right out into the open where you can actually look at them and deal with them. Next, you have to embrace the idea that seeking support is a mark of immense courage and strength, not weakness. Reaching your hand out and saying, "I need help," is your absolute most important act of self-advocacy. But to truly move forward on this path, there is a vital psychological shift we have to make. And that shift is distinguishing fault from responsibility. This is huge, guys. What happened to you, whether it was driven by complex family genetics, a highly toxic environment, or profound, totally unfair trauma, is likely not your fault at all. You didn't ask for it. But the proactive steps required to heal from it, that is undeniably your responsibility. Think of it kind of like being in a terrible car accident caused by a totally reckless driver. It was completely not your fault that you were hit. You were just sitting at the red light. But when you wake up in the hospital, it is still entirely your responsibility to go to physical therapy, to do the grueling exercises, and to actively heal your own injuries. Nobody else can do the push-ups for you, right? And honestly, this is such a beautifully empowering shift in perspective because it allows you to stop wallowing in that endless paralyzing loop of why did this happen to me and instead courageously ask, okay, what am I going to do about it right now? That right there, that is exactly how you reclaim your ultimate power over your life. Once you've accepted that responsibility for your healing journey, step 2 is aggressively building a support network around yourself. You simply cannot fight this massive battle alone. Human connection is literally the ultimate antidote to despair. For immediate, terrifying crises, dial the 988 Lifeline. Just do it. Don't hesitate. Activate your personal network by clearly and honestly communicating what you need to trusted friends and family. Don't make them guess. Seek professional help, whether that's one-on-one counseling or specialized therapies like CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, which actively helps you reframe those deeply negative thought loops, or maybe DBT, dialectical behavior therapy, which provides incredibly practical skills to manage intense emotions without instantly acting destructively. And lastly, lean heavily into peer support. Groups like 12-step programs or Smart Recovery, they offer an irreplaceable, profound sense of belonging from people who have walked the exact same agonizing miles you are walking right now. They just get it.
All right, step 3. This is where the real daily gritty work happens, building new pathways to peace. Because listen, you can't just remove a destructive habit and leave it at that. That just leaves a massive gaping hole in your life. You have to intentionally replace it with a healthy strategy to fill that void. So what does that look like? It means actively practicing stress management through daily exercise or mindfulness meditation. It means working with your counselor to learn real emotional regulation so you can actually handle sudden, intense waves of feeling without immediately reaching for something to self-medicate. And it means setting incredibly realistic, tiny goals. Break massive objectives down into highly manageable, bite-sized chunks and rigorously celebrate every single tiny victory. Did you make your bed today? Celebrate it. Did you get through the afternoon without a drink or without lashing out? Celebrate it. Why? Because celebrating these small wins literally feeds your brain healthy hits of dopamine. It actively begins repairing those hijacked reward pathways we talked about earlier. Momentum is absolutely everything in recovery.
Now, what's really interesting about this next point is how it completely changes the way we view failure. As you build these new, healthier patterns, you have to learn to be deeply, radically patient with yourself. Progress is practically never a straight upward line. It just isn't. It is messy. It loops back on itself. If you stumble, if you have a relapse, you must immediately reframe that dark moment. It is actually a powerful opportunity to learn exactly what your hidden triggers are. It is not a permanent dead end. It just means you found a pothole on your road. You note exactly where it is, you learn from it, and you keep driving. Please be endlessly kind to yourself as you literally rewire your physical brain for a better life. Which brings us to step 4, creating a solid safety plan and a long-term vision. Now, this required a very specific dual approach. First, you need an immediate safety plan. Think of this as your break glass in case of emergency plan. You need to know exactly beforehand where to go, what environment to immediately leave, and exactly who to call during a highly vulnerable moment of weakness. You don't want to be figuring that out while you're in a panic. Second, you need a structured medical and psychological recovery plan to keep you safely anchored in your day-to-day routine. But it's actually the third piece, future visioning, that acts as a magnet, powerfully pulling you forward through the inevitable pain of growth. And that perfectly transitions us into Section 5, your future vision, a future that is absolutely worth fighting for. Let's move to this final phase and see how this all builds together. This is where we shift entirely from merely surviving a horrible crisis day by day to actively designing a beautiful life where you truly thrive. You need to create a vivid, highly detailed picture in your mind of your life completely beyond these current challenges. I want you to really imagine the meaningful, rich relationships you will foster when you are healthy and present. Imagine the long-forgotten passions you will finally have the energy and the clarity to pursue. This vision, it becomes your ultimate North Star. Because let's be real, there will be terrible days when the raw work of recovery feels agonizingly hard and maybe even pointless. But on those days, this mental image of the vibrant, healthy person you are actively becoming, that is the absolute why that will keep your feet moving forward when everything else is telling you to quit. I want you to pause for a second and really let this truth resonate deeply within you. You have already survived 100% of your hardest days up until now. It's almost too simple, right? But it is a profound, undeniable truth, and it completely validates your immense, staggering inner strength. The current problems you are facing, no matter how heavy or suffocating or impossible they feel today, they are just a temporary chapter in a much longer, much more beautiful book. They are not your entire life story. Your life is an invaluable, irreplaceable gift to the world. And whether you feel it right now or not, you inherently possess the profound capacity to overcome this dark season.
So we end with a question directed straight at you. And I want you to think about this really carefully. What is the single intentional first step you will take today to start claiming your extraordinary future? Just one step. Will you finally call a therapist? Will you go to the store, buy a notebook, and start a journal tonight? Will you bravely confide the truth to a friend you trust? Every single grand, miraculous escape from darkness always starts with just one small, brave movement. You are not alone. Your life is absolutely worth fighting for. And I genuinely cannot wait to see the remarkable, brilliant future you are going to build. Go ahead and take that first step today. You've got this.